Welcome to Real Shame. It's a twice a week show. I keep on wanting to say podcast. It's a twice a week show.
It is a podcast.
Yeah, a podcast as well, where we review movies from our list of movie blind spots or list of shame. Hence the name Real Shame. I'm Adam.
My name's Andy.
And earlier in the week, we were talking about LA Confidential. So we decided to pair with that movie
Body Heat from 1981.
1981.
Body Heat.
And this was a movie that I also haven't seen before. Have you seen?
I have, but it's been, I think I probably saw it as a teenager, so I doubt I got much out of it when I was a teen. I think I got a lot more out of it now, as did William Hurt. I mean, you did.
Yeah, you did. So, what are your thoughts on Body Heat?
All right, so Body Heat.
Or why did we choose Body Heat to go with LA Confidential, and then what are your thoughts on Body Heat?
Well, they're both noir, film noir. And everybody's like, how do you say that movie? Because I don't speak fluent French. Some people say noir, but I'm not gonna say that because I probably sound stupid saying that. But so film noir, Noir, they are both newer versions of that. Even though LA Confidential was actually set in the time period that most film noir movies are in the 40s and 50s. This is set in the 1980s, in 1981 or whatever. But it would be considered more of a neo-noir or a new noir movie. But that's why we kind of chose it. Something a little more modern, although it's almost 40 years old, but still a little more modern as far as those movies go. And that's basically why we chose it.
Great.
Hi, Ned.
What are you doing here?
Just looking for you. You always run this late?
No, I'm going down to Miami tomorrow. I won't have time.
What's in Miami?
Closing that real estate deal I was working on.
You're some kind of health nut. Henry Walker smokes that same brand. I noticed that.
This is going to be one of those conversations, because if it is, maybe I should have my lawyer present.
Buddy, your lawyer is present.
Body Heat, the kind of story is that you have William Hurt playing he's kind of like a lawyer, but he seems like he's a lawyer for scumbags.
Yeah.
Sleazeballs.
I definitely got that right.
And he seems like he's very much, he needs love a lot.
He's not the most moral guy.
He's not the most moral guy.
The clients he represents, and he's trying to pick up women right and left, and he tries to pick up Kathleen Turner, which is how the story kind of gets the ball rolling. And she tells him she's married, and he's just like, I don't care.
Yeah, he's like, I don't give a care.
He's not the most moralistic kind of guy.
And then he just keeps on running into her, trying to run into her. And then finally he develops a relationship with her, and then she wants him to get rid of her husband. Mm-hmm. And then he does.
So she can get that money.
And then little did you know that she kind of had a plan all along, and he ends up going to jail for it.
Who'd have thunk that she was playing him the whole time? I think if you've seen any movie like this before, you all would have thunk it, because it's probably pretty obvious.
And it reminds me of the train thing, where two strangers on a train meet, and they contemplate kind of murdering off each other's significant others kind of thing.
Right.
This is why I don't write summaries for movies, but I feel like that was a adequate summary of the movie.
It's according to what I was reading. I guess Lawrence Kasdan was heavily influenced by Double Indemnity. If you've ever seen Double Indemnity, it's kind of a similar plot. Obviously, a lot more risque, which we'll get into. But it's kind of a riff on that.
And it was written. So let's talk about the little bit behind the scenes. So it was written, directed by Larry Kasdan, who would go on to write Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, and you can thank him for Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Love Raiders.
Who doesn't? And Return of the Jedi, and more recently, not most recently, but he did Force Awakens.
And his son helped write Solo, I think, or helped start the story process on that.
Okay.
John Kasdan, if I remember correctly. Jake Kasdan,
yeah.
All right, I feel like we covered kind of the behind the scenes of that. So I actually really enjoyed this movie.
Really?
I liked it a lot better than Confidential.
Wow.
I thought it was really interesting, and like I said, I feel like, it's a very pared down movie. You don't have a lot of you don't have a huge cast, so I feel like you get a very good, look at, William Hurt's character, Kathleen Turner's character. Like, I just feel like that world feels very lived in, and those characters feel very fleshed out to me. And even like Ted Danson and, the police officer friend, I feel like you have a lot of time to kind of spend fleshing out all these characters.
I could have used a little more Ted Danson and the other guy. I don't know his name, but I could have used a little bit more though. But that's just me.
The one thing I want to call out was Kathleen Turner's obsession with wind chimes. That was I put down. She's a crazy wind chime lady.
She loves that. She's not a crazy cat lady. She's a crazy
wind chime lady. Oh my gosh! And the movie it takes place like in Florida, right, or around that kind of southern area?
Yeah, something like that.
Because it does feel like it's interesting because I'm like of two minds on this, because on one hand it does feel like very hot and sweaty, and not necessarily in the sexual sense, but it just does feel like very foggy and musky and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, if these characters comment on how hot it is one more time, I'm going to throw my remote at the TV.
Take a drink every time they comment on how hot it is and see how drunk you get.
So I'm of two minds, because I do feel like it does show that, and I do feel that while watching it, but also it just, I didn't need all the characters saying it. It feels like every other line of dialogue was how hot it is. I mean, especially like William Hurt, the first, like, he even says to Kathleen Turner, like, don't tell me how hot it is or whatever, because he's just, because that's his line, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what'd you think of Body Heat?
So when I saw it when I was a kid or teenager or whatever, I didn't care for it much. And I thought, because it was critically well received. Yeah. I didn't care for it much as a teenager. I liked it better this time, but I still don't think it's that great, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the movie just doesn't do it for me. And I think one of the main things about it, I think some of the dialogue's really good, and some of the dialogue not so good.
Yeah.
But I think William Hurt is so aloof in this movie. William Hurt is not, he's always kind of a low-key actor, unless he's playing General Ross or somebody like that in the MCU. He's generally a pretty low-key actor. I think that works fine for certain movies, but in this movie, I don't feel like he has nearly as much screen presence as Kathleen Turner does. Even though Kathleen Turner, basically the whole movie, she's just kind of panting and teasing him and leading him on and everything. But I felt like she just did a lot better than he did. I just kept thinking he's so aloof in this movie. He has moments where he has outbursts, or he has moments where he has a little bit more oomph to his performance. And I don't think he's bad necessarily. Yeah. I just think that he's way more subdued maybe than he should be, if that makes sense. So I think his performance and some of the story, I won't say torpedo the movie for me, because ultimately I still would give it like a thumbs up or favorable. I would say definitely watch it, because I think it's worth watching.
We can't say thumbs up because it's probably copyrighted.
Oh, well. Appendage up, whatever, a digit up. But anyway, I would recommend it to other people. But I'm not super enthusiastic about it. So I'm kind of the opposite. I love LA Confidential. This movie I'm just like okay with. So that's basically how I feel about it.
And we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but it's also a very like sexual kind of movie. It's
very explicit.
Very explicit
for this type of movie.
Yeah. Which was a little bit of a shock, but I mean, do you think it? I mean, I'm one of those people that I don't need a lot of like sexual stuff in movies.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just kind of like, it seems like it's a little bit too extra, but I don't feel like it was distracting to me at all.
Yeah, I don't really have any problems with it. I could take it or leave it. I mean, I don't know if he just really, really wanted to show this is why this woman has such a hold on this guy, or why they have such a hold on each other. I'm not sure exactly what his intention, and by him I mean Lawrence Kasdan or Larry Kasdan. I don't know what his intention necessarily was in doing that, but it definitely is way different than obviously the film noir movies of the 40s and 50s, because they couldn't show stuff like that, not even close. You do see maybe more of William Hurt and Kathleen Turner than you ever wanted to, or depending on whatever, maybe you want to see all that, but yeah, I mean it doesn't really bother, or it didn't really bother me. I don't know how I felt about it when I saw it a long time ago. Probably back then I was giggling more, but now I'm just like, oh, okay, so they're doing that now. All right, well, they're doing this. So, but yeah, I can take it or leave it, like I say.
And I guess from the movie, if I remember correctly, Kathleen Turner's been married a couple times, right? And or am I making that up in my own head? Because I feel like she's murdered off a husband before. Like, it feel like
I didn't get that.
Okay.
Yeah, that may be a different movie.
Maybe, but I mean, you do agree though in this movie that her goal was to amend the will so she would have William Hurt kind of as and get him like amped up enough to kill her husband and have him as the fall guy. Like, you don't read that whole the whole aspect when they're reading the will and they call him into the office and they're like, you made this amendment wrong as a like an accident, right? That would seem very purposeful for you on her end.
Yeah, I thought everything was purposeful on her end, and I mean, to the point where it's probably not very believable. But I think with a film noir, there's always going to be twists and turns. You have to go with the contrivances. So that none of that stuff bothered me. There's other movies, honestly. Maybe semi-related. The movie The Game, David Fincher's The Game, they kind of string Michael Douglas along the entire time. And I found that movie to be less believable than a movie like this. I didn't really have problems with this. I was going to say, I've looked down here. Another thing about the movie that I really couldn't stand was the score by John Barry, the music. It was so overbearing half the time. And sometimes it even seemed to drown out the dialogue. I had to turn on the subtitles. I was like, what are they saying? Between the overbearing score and maybe in another movie this would have worked. I felt like he should have went with a different composer, a different type of score, something like that. But it was so overbearing. And William Hurt also kind of I feel like mumbles a lot. And that goes along with his kind of low-key, aloof character for me anyway. So yeah, I was like, God, turn that score down.
I was also thinking about when William Hurt threw the chair through the window. I thought that was definitely over the top, but again, I think it's kind of par for course for this kind of movie, you know?
Yeah, it's a very strange thing to do, but strangely enough in this movie, I think it kind of works, honestly. It's weird. You're like, what the hell's he doing? But it doesn't seem as out of place as it might sound. I thought some of the editing was a little bizarre. When her husband comes back for the first time, I felt like there was more to that scene maybe that got cut out, because when he came back, I wasn't even sure if that was her husband or not. I was like, who's that guy? You know, because he just drives up and he's got the little girl in his car, and he's like, hey, I got the niece with us or whatever, whatever. And I was like, who is this guy? And then I think he just drives away. And I was like, she had said something the day before about my husband's coming back tomorrow. So I thought there was going to be much more of a grand production with him arriving back. I thought that was going to happen, but it was very choppy to me.
And there is this one ADR line when she says the girl's name that Kirby and I rewinded like 5 times because
she had to redub.
Oh yeah, because what her lips say and what she says is completely different, and it sounds like they called her up on the phone. They're like, "Hey, we need you to," like they held the tape recorder to her. They're like, "All right, say this line." And like, you don't have to come in. We just need you to say this one line. And she's like, "Natalie," and they're like, "Okay, got it. Cool. We're gonna use it. Print."
It just doesn't match.
Yeah, it doesn't match at all. It was very jarring to see.
I like Ted Danson in this. This was before he did Cheers, and it was right around. Well, I guess it was before he did Creepshow, because he's a Creepshow as well. I liked him. Again, could have used a little more of him. I loved Mickey Rourke in this film. He's in it for 2 seconds. But I thought Mickey Rourke was great.
But again, that scene with Mickey Rourke, and I'm glad you brought this up, where it's like, it's like we're building a bomb montage to Bob Seger's. Like, because he's playing that music real loud. It's like, it's like, oh yeah, we're putting a bomb together. Boo. I'm just like, what? What?
He was rocking out to Bob Seger.
I don't know if it's exactly Bob Seger, but it sounded like Bob Seger. But it sounded like it sounded like a Rocky montage in the middle of this movie of making
but it's not like they're like fading in and cutting and stuff.
I feel like they are.
No.
I know they are. But it's just like, it's like this upbeat, like, gonna turn this thing, gonna put the battery in here. Watch
build
out.
that bomb.
Yeah, build that bomb. Watch out for that gas tank. Arson. All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So Colonel Troutman, or the guy that played, his name's actually Richard Crenna, but I always think of him as Colonel Troutman from the Rambo movies.
Yeah.
Colonel Troutman or Richard Crenna is the guy that plays Kathleen Turner's husband in the movie that they want to kill so they can get his money. One thing about his character, you get a tiny sense that he's not evil, but he's not a good guy necessarily, because he's not very forthcoming about what his business does and whatnot. But I also could have used a little bit more development as to what is this guy? Like, what does he do? He's not. Yeah, he's not as developed.
Excuse me, for sure. Yeah, you don't get a lot of him, and he's gone for most of the movie.
Yeah,
and the only kind of
he's helping Rambo.
He's helping Rambo. Yeah, the only thing you really get from him or get about his character is what Kathleen Turner says about him. And as you can tell in this movie, she's kind of an unreliable narrator. She's a liar, right? So she's kind of lying through her teeth. So, and you kind of find out that he has a lot of these buildings that may or may not be kind of part of shady mobster-ish
probably has
kind
some
of
shell
deals.
corporations
and stuff like that. But you don't get a whole lot of him in the movie, so you don't get a whole lot of the kind of person he is, because she says like he beats her, right? Like he says I'm pretty sure he says she's.
I think she does.
She says he's abusive, but you don't get any of that kind of.
And when she leaves the table, you get a sense kind of his violent nature, because he's like, if I found out she was seeing another guy, I'd kill him. Yeah. So he's very.
But for me, that kind of read more as posturing than anything he would actually do.
Maybe.
But maybe that was just kind of where I was with the movie.
I liked the scenes. I like the fact that William Hurt is friends with this other prosecutor played by Ted Danson and the police officer guy, and I like their little scenes together, because you can tell they are pretty sure he's in on it, but they don't want him to be, because they're his buddies.
Yeah, they keep on looking for. I thought was
an interesting little thing about the movie,
and they keep on looking for reasons like to exonerate him from it and stuff. Yeah,
and when Ted Danson and William Hurt are at the pier together at night, Ted Danson doesn't want him to admit any sort of guilt, and he's like, hey, I'm your lawyer. Yeah, don't say anything. All this other stuff. I like that aspect of it a lot.
The other thing I wanted to call out that's very interesting, looking at this from 2020 where we are now, is he goes for a run, and as soon as he stops running, he pulls a cigarette to smoke. Which in this day and age, we're like, whoa, those two things are diametrically opposed. Yeah. But back then, I guess it wasn't that big of a deal.
What did you think about Ted Danson's weird little Fred Astaire fetish? He's like dancing around and stuff.
There's a lot of randomness in this movie that is just, I don't know if there's filler or whatever, but like the bomb montage, we could have definitely had a smaller version of that. And I know it's not actually a montage.
But it's not a very long scene either.
It felt long.
Well, but
to me,
obviously, you need that scene because you have to have Mickey Rourke's character, because he does appear again later in the movie. Remember, because he tells her she had me make her another bomb, and that's how he knows that there's a bomb out there at the beach house or at the boathouse. Excuse me.
Did he?
Yeah. Mickey Rourke gets arrested, and William Hurt comes to see him, and William Hurt thinks it's because Mickey Rourke needs him to defend him again. He's like, no, I got another lawyer, but I want to tell you, that girl that you're seeing or whatever, she came to me and asked me how to make one. And so then he knows that now she's made another bomb, and that's the one that's at the boathouse. Yeah, go back and rewatch.
I need to rewatch that. Yeah,
so there's two key scenes with Mickey Rourke. First, it introduces him, and obviously that's where he gets the bomb that kills Richard Crenna, or kills the Bob Seger bomb that kills Colonel Troutman. And then in the second scene, he says, "I want my bird." No, he doesn't say that. He says,
"Give me my bird."
I want my bomb.
Give me my bird.
Yes, give me my bird.
I do think this is something that this movie does better than Black Dahlia is Kathleen Turner's character and her best friend, her oldest friend. They look very similar.
They do. So you can tell
almost too much to where you can't tell. For me, it was hard to tell which actress it was.
Well, and that was the point, because he comes up behind her and he says something rather explicit to her, and she turns around. She's like, "Oh, maybe."
Very friendly neighborhood we live in.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I feel like with Black Dahlia, you had Hilary Swank, and I forgot the actress who played the lady that got murdered, and but the lady got murdered looks a lot like Eva Green. And so if you can picture Hilary Swank and Eva Green, they don't look anything remotely like. But the whole movie, they're like, oh, you guys look a lot like. You guys look a lot like. And I'm like, no, they don't. They don't look a lot like at all.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
but I thought this movie did that well. And and I thought that was very interesting how she faked her own death and assumed her friend's identity.
Definitely plays a big part of the plot.
Yeah. And I thought that was all very cool.
I liked at the end the way he figures this out in his head.
Yeah.
But just to confirm it, he gets a copy of their old yearbook and he's looking at the pictures to see what their names are. And I like the fact that Kathleen Turner's, it says she was known as the Vamp.
The Vamp,
And her ambition is to be rich and live in an exotic land. So that's some foreshadowing, for what she would later do in her life. And then just out of curiosity, because I noticed that when he looked at her picture, but I wasn't paying attention when he looked at the other girl's picture. So I went back and I froze it. Her friend's ambition was to graduate and not get murdered by my best friend in a convoluted inheritance scheme. Actually, it was actually her ambition was just to graduate. That was it. That's awesome. And I don't remember what she was known as. I don't think it said that.
It did say it because I remember being like, "Oh, that's interesting," but I didn't retain it long enough.
She was known as Maddie Tyler's double or whatever, Marianne Walker's double, since she was Maddie Tyler all along. Dun, dun, dun.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. But again, kind of a mixed bag for me. Ultimately, I do like it. I'm just not over the moon about it.
Yeah.
So
like I said, I was more in favor of it. I want to see more movies like this. Like this got me really excited about this kind of genre because I thought this was a very interesting movie, and I do think there are some things that could have been improved on this movie. But overall, I found it very favorable, and I'm excited to kind of dive into more movies kind of like this. Like maybe watch Double Indemnity.
I was just about to say Dublin. I think this compares very favorably, obviously, to Double Indemnity because this supposedly was a huge inspiration for it. Also, The Postman Always Rings Twice, which has Lana Turner, which we discussed in Lana Turner and LA Confidential. Postman Always Rings Twice is really, really great. There's a remake of it that came out the same year as Body Heat with Jack Nicholson and Jessica Lange, but skip that one. Watch the Lana Turner, John Garfield one. That was really good. And then, honestly, I think this film... It kind of reminds me a little bit of Blood Simple, the Coen brothers' first movie, because that's very noir-ish, very, very much so, and very twisty and turny.
I think that one's on my list.
Yeah,
I always get Blood Simple and A Simple Plan confused in my head.
Yeah, Simple Plan's good too. Also,
because that's Danny Boyle, right?
No, Simple Plan is Sam Raimi.
Yeah,
Billy Bob Thornton, Bridget Fonda, and all them. Yeah.
Then what was Shallow Grave is Danny Boyle.
Shallow Grave is Danny Boyle.
That's also
really
so
good.
We're gonna have to do like a trilogy.
Definitely.
Over these movies.
I could watch all of those movies again. I like them all.
I don't think I've seen many or all of them. I might have seen clips of one of them, but we'll find out. I'll have to look.
We definitely need to watch those.
Those are very cool.
Post show.
So that was our review on Body Heat. As we usually like, anything you'd like to say in closing on it?
Yeah. Last time we talked about LA Confidential, how it was 99% fresh, and the audience score was, I think, 98% fresh. They were very, very close together. This is 98% fresh. Doesn't have quite as many reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score is 81%. Yeah. So the audience, it's a solid kind of low B. It's a B minus for the audience. Kathleen Turner and William Hurt would team up again with Lawrence Kasdan for the movie The Accidental Tourist, where, again, William Hurt has a very kind of low-key character, but I think it really fits that film. William Hurt also would do The Big Chill with Lawrence Kasdan right after Body Heat, I think in 1983. Obviously, Kathleen Turner would go on to do Romancing the Stone, huge hit. Jewel of the Nile, Michael Douglas is in those movies, and then she would be the voice of Jessica Rabbit for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I was about to say Who's Afraid of Roger Rabbit. I'm thinking Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Who's Afraid of Roger Rabbit, Virginia Woolf. No, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And there's a tie-in to that with Veronica Lake, which we talked about in LA Confidential. Yeah. Supposedly the hairstyle of Jessica Rabbit, the little peekaboo hairstyle that she has, came from Veronica Lake.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, they all kind of tie together that way. William Hurt, obviously, I mentioned earlier, he plays General Ross in the MCU. Yep. Lawrence Kasdan has directed plenty of movies since then. Still writes screenplays, as we mentioned, Return of the Jedi, Force Awakens, stuff like that. His son, Jake, I don't remember what all movies he's done, but his directorial debut is called Zero Effect, which I think is really good. I actually watched that within the last few months. And I'd seen it a long time ago. Oh, it definitely flew under the radar back in the 90s. But I would say check out Zero Effect. Maybe not for everybody's taste, but I think it's a solid directorial start. Lawrence Kasdan did Silverado. Did you ever see that one? The Western? Oh. That's a pretty good crowd-pleasing Western. He did Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. And then he did Dreamcatcher.
7 hours long.
Dreamcatcher starring Morgan Freeman's eyebrows.
Yes.
Yes, Dreamcatcher is awful, but it's one of those movies that you get all your buddies to watch, and so you guys can make fun of it, because Dreamcatcher is absolutely terrible. And yes, Morgan Freeman's eyebrows should have their own... I bet they had their own trailer.
They had their own billing.
Yeah, they had their own trailer.
Kirby, we need a trailer for his eyebrows.
Yes, for sure. For sure. But yeah, that's kind of what those guys have done. That's obviously Ted Danson did Cheers. Yeah. We know what happened to him, and what's the show that just ended? The Good Place. Or
the Good Place, which is a really good show.
Yeah. So he's had a very long and
illustrious
career. Yes, but that's what we're wrapping up with there. That data.
All right.
Digest that.
So with these, as we normally do, we like to end with a viewer question.
Yes.
And we do have a viewer question, because I had to look it up while we were talking about it.
Thank God, because I was like, what was the viewer question? I forgot.
So the viewer question is, Andy.
Yes.
What's the movie you've seen the most time in theaters?
Do
you know off the top of your head?
I think, honestly, I don't think I've ever seen a movie more than 4 times in the movie theater. I had friends back in 1997. Not you. I had friends back in 1997. I had a friend that saw Titanic like 10 times in the movie theater. No. I saw it, I think, just once in the theater. But in 1997, I saw Boogie Nights 4 times in the movie theater. I think I saw Pulp Fiction 4 times. I think I saw Michael Mann's Heat 4 times.
Yeah.
And I might have seen LA Confidential. I saw it at least 3 times. I might have seen it 4 times in the movie theater. But those are the movies I can think of that I've seen, and I've all seen them 4 times. Never gone for a 5th time. Yeah. Never felt the need to go back for a 5th time. Yet, yeah.
But you also don't see movies a lot over and over again, like in theaters and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think it was easier to do back when I was jobless. Yeah. You know, I was a teen or whatever.
Homeless.
Back in the homeless and jobless back in the 90s or whatever, or didn't have very many responsibilities as I do now. You know, now working full time and everything, a lot of times you just don't have time. So
fair enough.
What about you?
So I am one of those people that I do see movies a lot in theaters. If I really like a movie, I'll probably see it 2 or 3 times in theaters. Just because like I just like that experience, and it's just, it's my favorite hobby is watching movies, which is kind of why we have this podcast. So I like to kind of relish in it and watch a movie again. And I watch movies a lot because when I wanted to be a screenwriter, I would just kind of study it, and there's things you pick up over multiple viewings of watching a movie that you don't necessarily pick up the first time. So as you're trying to like learn the craft, or as I felt as I was trying to learn the craft, that watching my favorite movies over and over again would kind of give me a leg up, or let me see kind of the inner workings for movies that I like. So I've seen like, Captain America Winter Soldier like 3 times. I saw like The Force Awakens twice, even though I don't really care for that movie that much. And what usually happens is I'll go see a movie by myself and I'll really like it, then I'll go see it with a friend. Yeah. But that's kind of changed over the last couple years. But usually it's always been like, I want to go see a movie and none of my friends do. So I'll go see it. And then I'll be like, it's really good. We got to go see it. And I can kind of browbeat them into going to see the movie with me.
Yeah.
And then I'll invite somebody else to go see it and stuff like that. I think the movie that I've seen the most was either Jurassic Park or The Mask.
I thought you were going to say Avengers Endgame.
I've seen Avengers Endgame post theater a whole bunch. But
in the theater you saw it
twice.
Oh, for some reason I thought you saw it 3 or 4 times in the theater.
Was it Kirby? 3 times. Seen it 3 times. 3 times.
Well, so how many times did you see The Mask?
I saw The Mask or Jurassic Park either 4 or 5 times.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought you were going to say like 10 times or something. I was going to be like, really?
So there's this time when The Mask came out, and I was a really big fan of Jim Carrey. I watched in living color. Probably shouldn't have because I was really young, but I did watch it. And it was really funny and really goofy and stuff. And my sister played soccer, And so instead of going and watch your soccer game, my parents would just leave me at the theater.
Dump you at the theater.
Yeah, so I feel like
go watch The Mask again.
they'll be like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I go to the movie theater. So I just go to the movie theater to watch The Mask. So there's like a period of a bunch of weekends where I watched The Mask a whole bunch because like that's just what I did because it was better than like sitting outside in the Texas heat.
Are you saying you were raised by The Mask?
I was raised by
your parents let you be raised by The Mask?
You merely adopted The Mask. I was raised in it. And Jurassic Park, I love that movie when it came out. I still love that movie.
Yeah, it's great.
I love dinosaurs, and it's a horror-ish movie with dinosaurs, action horror movie. But that didn't like stop me from loving that movie. And that was just one of those movies that I think I just always asked, like, can we watch it again and again? Again, I remember just seeing that one a whole bunch of theaters. So for me, it's either Jurassic Park or The Mask.
Jurassic Park's not quite as scary as Theodore Rex with Whoopi Goldberg. Look that up if you don't know what I'm talking about.
What about Tammy and the T-Rex?
Tammy and the T-Rex too, yeah. No, I love Jurassic Park. I probably saw it twice in the movie theater, and I probably would have gone and seen it more if I would have had the chance to or whatever, because I really, really love that. The Mask, I think I've seen The Mask once all the way through. Maybe I need to rewatch that.
We watched it recently.
I liked it, but I don't remember a lot.
We watched it recently, and it's...
How is the CGI in that now? Still hold up?
It's okay. It's not as bad as some things we get. I mean, I think, like, for me, the gold standard of CGI holding up is Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Like, I think that movie looks as good today as it did when it came out. And, and I think it's because it's a mixture of things. Like, I think with special effects, if you do multiple ways of doing those special effects, it's going to look better because it's always changing and you won't catch on to it.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that they used, they built a full-size T-Rex, but they also built a CG T-Rex and all that stuff kind of worked together to make a great movie. What was I going to say? I think that's it. Oh, with The Mask, watched it recently. Not quite as funny as it, but I love the Cuban Pete dance sequence. Mm-hmm. For me, I love dancing and musical numbers in movies. Like, 500 Days of Summer or Enchanted. Just anytime there's like a big musical production number in a movie, I will love it. I'm weird like that. I just love it.
Well, I hear what you're saying about you see a movie that you like that you bring your friends to so that they can be introduced to it. Yeah. I know I did that with Boogie Nights. I drugged some friends to see Boogie Nights, and they all were like, "This movie sucks." That seems to be a theme.
But I watched Boogie Nights because of you, and I liked it.
That seems to be a theme, though, with me. Is I'm like I try and show people like kicking and screaming.
Yeah, when you said that, I was thinking about kicking and screaming.
People are like, "This movie's stupid. Why'd you like that?" And
like
Boogie Nights, I don't think any of my friends really were that enthusiastic about it, and some of them flat out hated it. Heat, I drugged some people to. And I think they all liked it. I mean, that's a very long film.
How can you not like Heat?
Yeah, it's a long film, but nobody cared. Yeah. They liked that. And I drugged some people to see LA Confidential, and they all liked it.
No, I mean,
and I didn't see Memento more. I saw Memento twice in the theater, but I remember taking people back the second time I saw Memento and introduced it because I was like, "This movie's awesome. You gotta check this out." So
I was working at Blockbuster when Memento came out, and I watched it on there. And the DVD, like the special features on the DVD, was awesome. The way that had like secret menus and all that kind of stuff was awesome.
I remember that.
Like I missed those kind of days of like when DVDs came out and they had all these multiple discs and special features and hidden menus and. You had to search for it. Like I thought that was like a really cool thing, and that's kind of gone the way of the dodo now.
They were very creative. Maybe we could tackle that in an episode. Like what's a very creative DVD menu that we remember?
Oh, I know so many.
Yeah,
that's a great one. That's a great one.
We could do that on another episode
for sure. All right, so that was Body Heat, and that was the movies we watched too many times in theaters, or maybe not enough. So if you want your email answered on the air, shoot us one.
Please.
And we will answer that question on the air. It's realshame@gmail.com. We're on YouTube. We're on all your podcasting platforms. So you can either watch the video or listen to us on your commute. Follow us on Instagram. We're Real Shame on Instagram. And we'll post a picture about, the movie that we're reviewing for that day. And we will see you next week when we're talking about
Starman.
And
John Carpenter's Starman.
Dark Star. We're doing a John Carpenter double feature.
John Carpenter twofer.
All right, guys. We will see you next time. Stay tuned. See ya.
I want my bird.